right. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful, amazing planet of ours. This is Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, coming to you live from my studio here in Seattle, Washington. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining the morning inspirational show every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just want to say happy Monday to you. This is Mocha Mondays. This is a 30-minute inspirational show that broadcasts here on the Facebook page, my Facebook page, Intuitive Prospector, and also over on my YouTube channel, which I'm going to share that link out to you right now. In 2020, you're going to be wanting to get on my YouTube channel because I'm going to be doing some pretty cool stuff. Let's see if I can actually add a link here. So if you guys don't mind, if you want to share out the page, please do so. If you know somebody that could hear today's message, might benefit from today's message. Today's message is actually a quote from Rumi. For those of you that follow Rumi like I do as a spiritualist, as a medium, as a psychic, and it's talking about if you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? And in today's day and age, we have so many different opinions. We have so many different venues to communicate, whether it's social media, whether it's telephone, whether it's news, whether it's all the different applications on our phone. And it's easy to get irritated in today's society. So I wanted to talk about that as far as how are you letting every irritation that comes your way, because you're going to have an antagonist. You're going to have somebody that's going to be irritated with you. And it's about going past and moving past the small stuff and not letting the irritations determine how you're going to be polished. So if you want to share out, please do so. Got a few of you joining this morning. Stick around at 8:30. I'm going to be doing just a half hour today for the Healing Cafe. So I'm only going to get in a few readings this morning. Hopefully you'll be one of the lucky ones. Just for the fact that I've got a 9 a.m. appointment myself. I'm going to be sitting down with one of my mentors to watch her philosophy on mediumship. So let me know if you're new to the show. Let me know where you're from. Again, like the page, share the page, follow the page, and let's do a little spiritual prospecting for your own spiritual transformations, healing, and of course, spiritual gold. And where's our spiritual gold on Monday mornings? Coffee. This wouldn't be Metaphysical Mocha Mondays without a little coffee, right? So let's talk about today's message about the irritations that we feel. If you don't know who Rumi is a 12th century mystic. He is from the areas of what we would call today modern Pakistan, Iraq, Iran area of where his philosophies were taking place. But he's from the 12th century. And again, I just, before my shows, I'm not really scripted. I don't have an agenda or anything like that on which I go with Mocha Mondays, because I try to make it inspirational, and I try to, just speak on current trends of what's going on in society, what I'm picking up in my meditations. And that came to me this morning. Maybe it was from Rumi himself. I don't know. But if you don't know about him, his name is Rumi, R-U-M-I. And again, 12th century mystic. And he's got, I've been following Rumi for a long time, so if you know the area of Iraq or Turkey, he is somebody that has really resonated with me over my years of my spiritual journey. I've been working on spiritualism since, I would say since the age of 27, when I got a phone call that changed my life forever. I got the phone call that my brother had been murdered. And I went home to prepare to do the funeral and the murder investigation and all that, and then 3 days later, my older brother was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer and passed into spirit not long after that. So those two events changed my journey, my belief system, and so I kind of started to unlearn everything I've been taught up to that point, up until the age of 27. And if you look at the age of 27, it's actually from an astrology standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, it's quite interesting. A lot of the famous stars, Kurt Cobain comes to mind, Morrison comes to mind from the Doors, Amy Winehouse, they were all 27, and they talk about the curse of the age 27. So my spiritual path really started to change at the age of 27. Now, this is 20 years later. I'm 47, which, is, again, another pivotal age as we get ready to go into a new decade, right? We're about to go into 2020. This is the last show of November, and then we're going to be into December, and then we're into 2020, which is a whole new decade, so new things to come. But Rumi is somebody that I really started to resonate with his words, and as a poet, a Persian poet, if you will. And I started to study the Sufi traditions of meditations, the Sufi traditions of vibrational chants, and really kind of telling myself that everything I've been taught, I started to unbelieve. Because when you're faced with such trauma and tragedy, it changes you. It changes your focus. It changes your mindset. And I also started to meditate and actually started to explore or to prospect, and that's how the Intuitive Prospector came into being, to find yourself in your reality today. So let me just turn the comments here. I got a couple of you watching. So good morning to all of you. Grab your coffee, grab your tea. Today we are talking about a Rumi quote, and it's literally, if you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? And only you can determine that. Only you can decide how other people are going to impact your journey. But for me, when just going through all the death and dying, because it was also that same time frame with not only just my two brothers, but my father-in-law was passing away from MS, and then a few years after that, my uncle had passed, my cousin had committed suicide, my real dad had passed from throat cancer. So it was just a lot of just overwhelming people moving from this world into the etheric world. Now, through years of meditations and counseling and understanding and going deeper in my spiritual path, Rumi really started to pop off the page for me, because he talks about you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. And my heart was broken over and over and over again. I just couldn't understand, especially for those of you that are watching today, when you have grieving, when you're going through grieving and mourning at the loss of a loved one, it changes you. It changes your whole belief system and how you view life, how you view death. For me, it's as a medium, I don't fear death anymore. I actually just know that it's the next step on the next staircase of learning and evolution and enlightenment. But a lot of times for Rumi, he talks about, some of you may know him as what you seek is seeking you. And so I started to seek spiritualism. I started to seek metaphysics. I started to look at communicating with the universe, which doesn't speak in English, but actually speaks in energy and frequency and vibration. No different than our cell phones. Really, I kind of look at us as modern day cell phones. We need energy. We need a frequency to connect. And last night I was watching 60 Minutes. And for those of you that watch 60 Minutes, they actually had a section on the show where they're actually starting to be able to read your thoughts, as far as your thoughts that come into your head. You look at a different word, and there's a pattern that takes place within your brain. And so really it was interesting for the fact that we all really do the same thing when it comes down to it. Now, yeah, we all try to be unique and authentic, which is today's message, always following that authentic path, of course. But we all walk forward. Nobody that I know really walks side to side or walks backwards in life. So this biological flesh suit that we have is very similar. Now, granted, we have different types of skin color, we have different eyes. We try to make ourselves authentic by making ourselves look different based on our hair, based on our tattoos, based on our clothes that we wear. But when you get down to the conscious level of human thought, of human consciousness, metaphysics, if you will, we really do have a lot of the same thoughts. And it was quite a fascinating study. So it's neuroscience. We're getting into nanotechnology. We're getting into neuroscience. And the neuroscience would actually show so if you thought of a word, for example, death, what your brain triggers, it would actually create a pattern to where the computer could recognize the pattern on the screen and come up with the word that you were thinking. So in a sense, they were starting to read your thoughts. Now, with the work I do as a psychic, as a medium, sometimes I do connect into that consciousness, that thought, but I do that through the power of sitting in silence and stillness, and that's where the connection takes place, is when you actually move into silence, which leads me to my next Rumi quote, where he talked about the more silent and the stillness you become within your life, the more you're going to actually hear. Now, for some of you, that's kind of a hard concept to grasp, especially if you're on a spiritual path or a metaphysical path, because a lot of the stuff that's going on around us is very, very subtle. One of my mentors talks about this all the time. The spirit world comes in like a lamb, not like a lion. And she's been doing this work for several years. And so when you get to that place where you kind of quiet your mind and kind of get away from the distractions of our very busy, chaotic society and life and marriage and your job and your career and your school, maybe you're in school, it's really hard to hear when you're so distracted. So Rumi talked a lot about changing your patterns, changing your life. And that happened for me at the age of 27 through the death and dying that I went through at such an extreme level. Now, on top of that, I've had a near-death experience. I've had an out-of-body experience. I've had connections with people all around the world doing mediumship, which we call after-death communications, or ADCs. So I know that there's something to that. And so that's why I continue to explore, because I'll be honest with you guys, I did not want to do spiritual work. I thought I was going to retire as a firefighter, and here I am, retired from the fire service, doing spiritual work, writing my first book. And trying to just understand, because it is a little bit of a pseudoscience. You can't always prove, but you can't disprove. And even this year in 2019, it's been a universal year. If you go to my page and scroll down on the Intuitive Prospector, I put an article of all the mind-boggling things that have taken place just in 2019. Something I wrote about in January of 2019 when the year was getting started. Because as a numerologist, I follow numbers, I follow patterns. And so that's why the 60 Minutes was so interesting to me last night, because it was literally showing the brain with a pattern based on a word that you're reading and a thought that you're having, to where the computer could read your thoughts. So everything is in patterns, and I teach this in my development group. I have an online development group called SDG, Spiritual Development Group. So if you're ever interested and want to stop in and get a visitor's pass to see if you vibe with your tribe, I've got about 15 people across the country in Canada. It's Wednesday nights. The time's changing. We're going to actually be bumping up the time here. But that's not till December. But if you want a visitor's pass, you ever want to stop in and just see what we do, because we explore all aspects of the spiritual path. We explore healing. We explore psychic sciences. We explore metaphysics. We explore mediumship. All of these different things that that are unseen, working with our other extra senses on top of see it, taste it, touch it, hear it, smell it. We work with our clairs, clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance. Just different ways to connect with the unseen world, the thing that surrounds all of us. And so every week we're practicing. Every week we're sitting in silence or doing a meditation and really trying to connect to that bigger source. But as a numerologist, I talked about that 2019, the year of the 3, which is a universal number, was going to be creating some big things, some big waves, some big antagonist concepts, to where people would be irritating you. People would be almost at each other's throat. And we see that here in the United States and around the world. England comes to mind with their Brexit, dividing of people. Hong Kong comes to mind, where Hong Kong's really trying to embrace their democracy. Not to get into politics, but I just look at world events to see that there's patterns that are taking place as a numerologist. Even here in the United States, with the impeachments that are going on, some people care, some people don't care. But what it's doing, it's dividing people. And I always said, in a universal year, that usually happens because as we head to 2020, which is a new decade, a new timeline, there's going to be a big shift. And I'll have my featured article hopefully out by December, early January, that'll talk about the year of the 4, because that's what 2020 is. And if you look at the number 22, which is 2020, adds up to 4. The 2 represents peace. And the 4 actually represents focusing and fixing as a dedicated worker to fix things that have been broken or things that were uncovered, to explore deeper with what took place in 2019. But I've got an article on my page. You can join my Soul Adventures page or get on my Inspired Living Radio page for my podcast. The article's there where it just talks about all the mind-boggling things that we've discovered just in 2019 alone. And I'm excited for the fact that 2020 is going to be just continue right with that trend. Now, we're going to still have our antagonists. We're going to still have things that rub us the wrong way. But part of the spiritual journey, and what I teach my group, is sometimes we have to rise above when things are going bad. Sometimes we have to smile in the face of people that are just being downright nasty, being mean, or being bullies. I always stand up to a bully, of course. Try to do that with your words, not by violence acts or anything like that. But sometimes that's the hardest thing we can do as spiritualists. And for me, even another mentor, he told me, the more you're out in the public arena, the more that you're viewed, the more that you're seen, the more people are going to come at you, the more people are going to backstab you. And it's sad to me, because it shouldn't be that way, especially as spiritualists. There's enough pain and misery in the world that we should be able to come together and work together. And so that's what I really teach on. That's what I really strive for. And if you're irritated by every rub, how is that polishing you guys? How you decide how that's going to impact you. I had talked about on my my main page of Facebook, Marc Lainhart, I had posted, because it's true, it's like real is rare in these days, but fake is everywhere. Everywhere you look, everywhere that I look, I see fake. I see I don't see people moving into their real selves and their authentic selves, because if you're truly moving into your authentic self and your real self, then you shouldn't be caught up in trying to create, division and chaos, and you should be moving to a place of peace and education and knowledge and wisdom, which leads us to enlightenment. So, Rumi was really big. And again, check him out, check his quotes out. They just have really resonated with me over the years to help me through some dark nights of the soul, to help me, look forward to tomorrow. There's one he talks about: yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. And when you think about that, about changing yourself, the ripple effect that you give out into the world, it really is about changing yourself. And one of the things I learned early on when it comes to religion, and I don't badmouth any religions. I think that there is one record with many different songs on it, but the one record plays truth and love, and it depends on where you're at in the world. But I found early on that religion is very powerful, because people will go out and say, well, if you don't believe what I am telling you, then you're wrong. You're a sinner and you're going to go to hell. And I just found that to be very, you're trying to change the world. I get that, but are you really changing yourself, that you would tell somebody, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong and you're a sinner and you're going to hell? And I was literally told that. Even in today's work as a spiritualist, I get people that actually come out. I mean, I got trolled last week in the Healing Cafe, which will take place here in about 10 minutes. We'll move to the Healing Cafe, and somebody was trolling me with angry faces, and I'm like, well, if you're angry, let's talk about why you're angry. Let's get to that root cause analysis, or you're just trolling me because you have nothing better to do. And that's kind of where we're at in life. People just want to just do strange things just to get a rise out of somebody. So, today's message comes from Rumi. If you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? And you decide. It really is your choice on how you want to respond to people, to situation, to experiences, to your job, to your relationships. Rumi talked about this all the time. Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And we've done a study even in my development group about the power of your words with water, the Dr. Emoto test, where you actually use the jars with rice and you talk to the jars. And then one of my members did an awesome PowerPoint presentation that literally reflected the color and fermentation of things changing over, I think she did it for 100 days, of the power of your words. So your words really do matter. And I mean, he was talking about this in the 12th century, guys. So this isn't nothing new. This is ancient wisdom and knowledge that you can tap into, especially with all the technology that we have today. I just go back to when I had to learn something. It was literally go downstairs on a bookshelf and pull out the Britannica Brown Encyclopedia and look through it, or walk your butt to the library with your library card, look up the Dewey Decimal System in the index card system, find your book on the shelf, check it out, go home. That's tiring. Now we have technology right at our fingertips with amazing things that are taking place. Just for the fact that the knowledge is right there to connect. Now, is everything true? No, but always trust your gut. Always feel into what feels right for you, what people say, what people do. Always trust your intuition, which is the language of your soul, your awareness. And when you trust your intuition, you learn your intuition, something that we work on in group as well, it does help you navigate the many pathways and hardships that life is going to throw at you, because life can be hard. It can be changing. It can be difficult if you allow it to be. So another quote from Rumi. I guess today's show is all about Rumi, because it started really with about today's message. If you're irritated by every rub, and I used to get irritated by just the littlest things, and maybe it comes with age, maybe it comes age begets wisdom. I wasn't as irritated as much, and I'm not as irritated anymore. It's almost like a smart person trying to prove themselves to somebody that's not very wise or educated. Smart people just kind of tend to do their own thing, and because you're gonna have a lot of seagulls that bite at you, but that's why the eagles fly high, and that's where you're always gonna have your pundits and your critics, and that's about moving into your authentic self. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it can be done with patience and trust and dedication and discipline to move into finding your authentic self. So I hope today's message is resonating with you. If it's not, well, at least we're hanging out having a cup of coffee. Now, of course, I've got my Imperial Death Trooper coffee mug this morning because I am, for some of you that follow me, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, fan, geek. I'm kind of sad because the last movie's coming out in less than 28 days, which is sad because I've grown up my entire life with Star Wars, the Force, the connection, all of that metaphysical energy, the spiritualism, if you will. I know it's a sci-fi movie, but if you look deeper, there's actually a lot of spiritualism within the Star Wars movies, and so I'm kind of sad because next month it's the last of the Skywalkers, I guess. So set your life on fire. Seek those who fan your flames. That's part of the authentic path, and that's what I was talking about this morning. You found your way here to Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. If you want to learn more about the work I'm doing here in Seattle or online or my events coming up in 2020, I've already got 3 amazing events coming up in 2020 scheduled here in Seattle. 2 tutors from the Arthur Findlay College will be here in 2020 for 4-day workshops. One young lady from Norway, Norway's favorite inspirational medium, will be here in April to teach a 1-day workshop from ordinary to extraordinary, and I'll be doing a dem with all 3 of these folks coming to Seattle. So if you've ever seen mediumship or you want to see mediumship, just go to marclainhart.com, click on the events tab. All the events are listed out, including the last event for December, which is Sunday with Spirit, which is almost sold out. There's only 3 seats left. And I'm also going to be teaching a class, Pathways to Mediumship, this month, in December. It's right before Thanksgiving, so the holidays are upon us. We're moving into 2020, a new decade, and today I'm just talking about today's message about if you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? And I'll let you just sit with that for a second. And as we're doing that, I'm going to give you your numerology number for the week. I like to give you, as a numerologist, I like to look at patterns. I like to look at trends. And the first one, there you go, patience. So that's your number for the week. Number 2, remember I was talking patience and peace is what 2020 is going to be all about. It's going to be a lot of patience. It's going to be a lot of 2 energy, which is peace. But the actual 4 energy of 2020 is focusing and fixing, dedicated worker to fixing what's been broken. So your reminder for this week is patience, the number 2. And again, I'm just picking these at ad hoc today, just to see if it resonates with you. And today's totem animal spirit is actually the rhinoceros. So if you follow the rhinoceros, if you see the rhinoceros in your life, in real life, in a movie, or in a book, nature interacts with us. That's why my backdrop is nature, because it's our greatest teacher, our greatest healer, our greatest engineer. Nature gets it done in her own time, but she always gets it done. So if the rhinoceros shows up in your spiritual journey, your path this week, because again, guys, the only thing that's guaranteed is today. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. You can't change yesterday. It's that old saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. And there's so much truth in that. So I hope that you move into the magic of the moment. You have an attitude for gratitude and really appreciate the things that you do have and not get caught up in the things that you couldn't do from your past or things that you don't have in your future, because that takes away from your spiritual journey and it takes away from your spiritual path. But if the rhinoceros shows up in your journey this week, experiment with doing things on your own, such as dining or going to a movie alone. Try doing something alone this week. The rhino in nature is they work in community in their herds, but they're also very independent creatures and they like to be alone. Do whatever you need to do to quiet your mind, such as setting aside some peaceful, relaxing time for yourself. So it's very simple. It's what Rumi was saying on one of his quotes. The more silent and still you become, the more you're going to actually hear. There's a reason that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, but we use this a lot more in this day and age with all of the opinions and people throwing their voice out and critics and pundits. And if you get caught up in that, take it from someone who knows, it's only going to just lead you down a spiral path of this rabbit hole, and you won't move into your authentic self. And everybody wants to find their authentic self so they can have peace, so they can have happiness, so they can have joy in their lives. And again, if you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? What will your lamp look like if everybody's just putting their fingerprints? I think of like the Stanley Cup. When the Stanley Cup, for those of you that follow hockey, we're going to have a hockey team here in Seattle. I'm excited for that. But when you see the Stanley Cup, it's all polished. And it's a trophy, and they've won. And then everybody hands it around. By the time it's done, it's just covered in fingerprints. And so that's kind of what it reminds me of, in the sense is, how are you going to be polished when everybody they're putting their prints on you, they're putting their opinions on you, their belief systems on you. This could be family, this could be friends, this could be your current relationship that you're in. How are you being polished, and what are you letting into your orbit, your auric field, your energy, and what are you just letting it pass through like osmosis? Are you sweating the small stuff, or are you letting the small stuff just move through you? It's all about how you're going to be polished. So, your heart is the size of an ocean. Go find yourself. It is hidden in its depths. And that's the other quote that Rumi talked about, is going within. The journey of finding the answers out here doesn't happen out here. It does, Google and the internet, and that can help you find resources, good reading, mentors, teachers. But the journey always starts with yourself. You came into this world alone, so shall you return. Now, when you return, there's going to be a lot of people waiting for you on the other side of this threshold. All of your family, your friends, your coworkers, your pets. I'm going to have a huge celebration when I move into the spirit world. And when this body ceases to exist anymore, I'll move over. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people waiting for me. And the reason I know that, because as a medium, I connect to them and have for almost the last 8 years now of my journey. So I know that there is life after death, and I know that there is after-death communications. But I've also applied myself to stop and listen and hear the etheric world, which is very, very subtle, very, very light. And that's why a lot of people miss it. So live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. That's another one of my Rumi quotes that I love, is we always want to get caught up in the negative aspects, but I always say focus on the good things coming your way. And know that life is rigged. It is. It's rigged, but it's in your favor. And again, how do you want to be polished with people's opinions or every rub that they're coming at you? So just wanted to leave that with you for this morning. Your crystal for this week is going to be the ruby. And the ruby is an excellent stone for imparting vigor to your life. So what better way to bring vigor and inspiration and energy than the ruby crystal, the ruby stone. You can get it polished. It's pretty well sourced in India and Russia and Cambodia and Mexico. I always say go with the uncut and the unpolished, because it's in its true raw form. But for those of you that want the rubies, some of you may actually have the ring. The ruby is really good for balance, and it is really good for encouraging a passion for your life, if you will. So the ruby is your crystal for this week. Crystals are pretty amazing when you work with them. And you try out the ruby. See if it helps you energize and balance your journey. Again, if you want to work with me, go to marclainhart.com, schedule a session. I can tell you that I'm excited because I take the month of December off. Again, talking about that, take the time to disconnect so you have time to reconnect that Rumi was talking about. So I'll still be doing the shows on Monday. My podcast will be up, Inspired Living Radio. I believe I'm starting this Wednesday with the new show, new format, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be talking about a very similar topic to this, and then I'm only going to be doing it twice a month now, so I'm kind of scaling back because I'm getting pretty busy in 2020, a lot of traveling, a lot of teaching, a lot of readings, so kind of having to juggle a little bit. But I'm excited to take the month of December off, which I do in my spiritual journey. I don't do any readings. I just take time to write and literally just take the time to disconnect so that I can connect to something bigger than myself. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray, is what Rumi reminds us. And again, the very center of your heart is where life begins. The most beautiful place on earth starts right here in the heart. So I'm going to be back for the Healing Cafe in about 30 seconds. It's been my pleasure to connect with you today. Of course, always over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I hope that you have a fantastic week. And again, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live. Life is short. Question everything. Go out there and, just have a fantastic week. And dance until you shatter yourself, as Rumi reminds us. Dance until you shatter yourself. And if you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished? That's today's message. So have a great rest of your week. And until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and I'll see you on another Metaphysical Mocha Mondays here on the Intuitive Facebook page. Namaste.